And at this point, I'm going to introduce Mark, who will introduce our speaker. Mark Lebovitz is a Duluth native and resides in Minneapolis with his wife, Jennifer. They have two children, Jackson in Washington, D.C., and Tessa at Skidmore College in New York. He likes to fly, as many of us know, ski, see live music and theater with family and friends, and he works with great colleagues and partners. Mark started his career in Minneapolis as an investment banking analyst in Dane Bosworth's public finance department after graduating from the University of Minnesota Duluth Public Finance, University of Minnesota Duluth in 1985. Mark also has an MBA from the Peter F. Drucker Graduate School of Management in Claremont, California. As CEO of Lebovitz Enterprises, the Lion Hotel Group, a Duluth-based and family-owned business, Mark focuses on financing and development activities. The firm operates hotels in Bozeman, Montana, Duluth, Bloomington, Minneapolis, and Palm Coast, Florida. I looked it up. It's between Jacksonville and Daytona Beach. So when you're planning your holiday, you can be looking that direction. So thanks. Come on up, Mark.
Thank you. You didn't read the second email, which was stop after the first paragraph. So thank you. Well, it's my pleasure to welcome our speaker today. Marnita Schroedl is CEO of Marnita's Table, a nonprofit she founded 15 years ago to seek to close gaps across difference through intentional social interaction. Her program is a new pattern for society where people of color, the disenfranchised, the poor, the unheard, the fragile, the LGBTQ plus, and anyone who is normally left out of community decision-making, which we in here probably take for granted quite often, are automatically included and valued at the policy making and resource sharing table. It's a new human-centered approach to decreasing disparities and catalyze enduring personal friendships across race, class, and culture. A 2009 Shannon Leadership Fellow and a 2014 Roy Wilkins Fellow, Marnita is a social entrepreneur who's invented a replicable way to catalyze strong relationships between disparate organizations and individuals in order to deliver stronger, more engaged communities for the benefit of all. A senior communications industry veteran with more than 20 years experience facilitating, training, and team building for corporate groups and senior executives, Marnita employs an innovative and goals-oriented approach to achieving clients' professional and personal objectives. A skilled and energetic facilitator, she excels at demonstrating the positive rewards garnered from proactively identifying and maximizing social capital. Marnita's professional and community volunteer activities focus on energizing groups, individuals, to make proactive transformational change through intention, communication, and action. As a biracial woman, Marnita demonstrates strength through multiculturalism. Please help me welcome Marnita.
Oh, here it is. This is the clicker. Okay. Can make sure I can click. Hi, everybody. I'm Marnita. And by the way, my last name is Schroedl, rhymes with dreidel or cradle. It doesn't have an A in sight, so nobody gets it right. Often Germans do, though, because it comes from a German background. So anyway, so hi, this is me when I was about 2.5 on the left and about, I don't know, 5.5 on the right. Anyway, I always start with my origin story. I was once told that, that's how Marvel starts all of its stories. And so I should start all my stories there. And my origin story is as follows. I was born in 1962, March 15th, 1962 in the Pacific Northwest. I was born to two people, for as far as the community knew, were white people. At 7 months, I was listed as white on my birth certificate. At 7 months, my melanin came in. My biological parents, who were moving to a state At the time I was born in 1962, still 66% of the states in the United States had anti-miscegenation laws that whites and blacks could not marry, and their children were automatically considered evidences of felonies. So it was okay for Black families to have mixed children. And in fact, it was okay for children to be mixed if they were products of rape, but not if they were products of love and marriage. I just want to point that out, that I'm not that old, I'm only 60. And that was the law of our country. The state started switching, quite frankly, like a week before Supreme Court ruled in 1967, Maryland changed, but the other 16 states defied that. And in fact, until 2000, Mississippi still refused to take it off their books. I'm saying this because I want you to realize that these laws matter, laws that we impose on other people's bodies that have nothing to do with ourselves and say that they don't have a right to live. It literally changed everything about my life at 7 months, because my father was in the military, and moving to one of the states where my body would be evidence of felonies. I was placed into the foster care system, and I was in 3 homes before I was 2.5 years old. I was ultimately adopted and went to live with a very conservative Irish and German family in a little town 60 miles north of Seattle called Arlington, Washington. It's in the foothills of the Cascades, and its claim to fame, it has the largest population of Ku Klux Klan west of the Mississippi. I was the only Black person in the town. And when I came to live with my family, which is the picture on the left, the entire town came out. I wouldn't be in school for 3 years, and they tried to keep me from going to school. That's what I look like as a kindergartner. Aren't I scary? Aren't I the thing that's going to take down an entire school system? I want you to know that in 8th grade, I was sent home for my own protection. Because the students gathered on the playground and threw milk cartons and apple cores at me and shouted, "Killed the N-word," and they locked arms and the teachers couldn't get through. And so I was sent home for the last month of my 8th grade year, and I spent most of my high school attempting suicide and wishing I no longer lived. And so here's the thing. All of us need to feel like we belong. All of us need to feel like we are a part of a community. And as I've moved through life, I'm now 60 years old, as you heard. I invented a technology based on belonging. It turns out that neuroscience tells us that all of us are hardwired for 3 things. We all need safety, we all need significance, and we all need belonging. Without those 3 things, we do not feel well. And in fact, under MRI and CAT scan conditions, when we do not feel we belong in a community, the same part of our brain lights up as being physically punched. That's really important, because if the reason people are acting out is because they do not belong in a community, maybe the solution is making people feel like they belong and welcoming them, as opposed to finding other more punitive ways to treat us. I certainly acted out a lot when I was that little kid who was not welcome. So I invented a model called intentional social interaction. And now there's digital intentional social interaction, because hi, all you out there who are in technology land that are joining us, because until, quite frankly, we've always dealt with this as a programmatic response, right? Like, oh, there are people who are left out. We don't like each other. Let's have a conversation about racism. We decided, this has literally happened. I was a senior executive in corporate America, and I was sitting at a table with Target. I know you came out of Target, and I was sitting in a senior brand meeting many years ago. This was like 18 years ago, 19 years ago, and Target casually said, "Well, you know, we know that every person who walks into a Target store, I'm not sure what the number is now, but 19 years ago it was $9. How many of you been to a Target store? How many have spent more than you planned to spend at that Target store?" That's called experience engineering. And Target knows that you're there to spend $9 on average, and how they move you through the space. They don't have to teach you to do it or tell you to do it or reinforce you to do it. Money will leap out of your pocket. In fact, on average, 10 times what you plan to spend. If you're there to spend $9, you're going to spend $90. And most of us think we're really good stewards of our resources. And most of us really hate the idea that we're racist. So I just kind of wondered, as a Black woman, whether we could use the same technology that, by the way, banks, Anyone want to guess who the biggest experienceer on the block is? Disney. They put little pots of vanilla behind trees. Your family is in complete meltdown. You've already spent 10 times what you planned to spend at Disneyland, and you're still there with your mouse ears on. It's the vanilla behind the trees. But the reason why this matters is that a lot of the ways that we're talking about these things are actually sort of counterintuitive to what we need to do to make them work in our communities and life. And so we took what Target did and Disney did, and we wondered, could we take the same technology that retailers use to make you part with your money, but instead make you part with your preconceived notion of the other? We're not going to tell you all about the technology. It's called intentional social interaction. It has 5 foundations: research, reflection, refine and repeat, authentic welcome, the element of choice, sharing power, and fun. It has 21 touch points, although it's getting a 22nd very soon, calling pay attention, what you pay attention to, which I'll explain in a minute. And it works. The only thing I can say, it's been around for 17 years. I realize my bio is out of date. We're now 17 years old. And I'm not sure if you can do this. Can you actually play a video?
Belonging is a basic human need because humans are social creatures who need connections with each other to survive.
I first became acquainted with the table when I was 14 years old. Marnita's table has opened the door for me to explore various perspectives and lived wisdom and understanding all over the country in a way I haven't been able to, both for the pandemic and just because it's hard to get that sort of vibrant experience.
As a youth, at Marnita's table, I was told that my opinions were important. People wanted to hear what I had to say. Being involved with Marnita's table supported my mental health because I made authentic connections that became community support, access to more information and new opportunities. And I was also entrusted with responsibilities and shown appreciation. These experiences empowered me and I became more confident and articulate.
Wherever we go in Minnesota, youth plead. Please give us more mental health engagement opportunities, age-inclusive, community-centered, and culturally responsive. They say that too often they feel as though they are a program to manage or a problem to solve. Instead, they want to be authentically welcomed and to have access to more youth cultural healing summits and healing from trauma ISIs. We welcome youth as they are, where they are, and for who they are, because relational challenges require relational solutions. Of conversations. It was actually, how many of you know who Bill and Penny George are? Sort of lions in our community. So Bill and Penny at the Penny George Center for Integrative Health and Healing and the Bill and Penny George, the George Family Foundation, worked with Marnita's table for the last 6 years, building a series of conversations called Healing from Trauma. And we've had almost 20,000 people to them across the country. And it's the #1 request we have. And right now, I've got to tell you guys something. Coming out of COVID, Black and brown communities were really hard hit in a way that I think middle class white communities have no idea. I haven't had a meeting with a community of color since January where somebody hasn't died or somebody hasn't had to leave the meeting because somebody, including my right hand and head of training, Lauren, who can't be here with us this morning because she has COVID, but she has a father who's 85 years old. And by the way, his mother was a slave. I just thought I'd mention that. I have a 28-year-old employee whose father is 85 and whose mother was a slave. So some of these things, you guys, you think are way long in the past. I have an employee whose grandmother was a slave in the United States. And so some of this stuff is more present for some of us than others, right? And so it's not that we're being overly sensitive or bringing up the things we want. And imagine the stories that Lauren's father can tell us. He was part of HUD in the 1960s during the civil rights movement in New Orleans. And this is a repository of information about how we made decisions about red light and all sorts of things. And so I just want you to say that sometimes the things that we think are far in the past, or maybe we've never met anybody that has gone through some of these things. Well, I'm a person. Hi, you can meet me. And you can come, I'm sorry, that's me. I'm back to clicking, aren't I? As I said, relational challenges require relational solutions. And one of the things about relational solutions is that they don't look the same as programmatic solutions. And it's how many of you guys had, how many of you had children? How many of you had children who maybe wanted to get into a career or something? I'm assuming a lot of you. How many of you had somebody in your network that they could go talk to about that career? Being a doctor, right? Okay. So I'm just saying that coming out of foster care and being underserved and under-resourced, didn't have that network. I wasn't a failure. I didn't need I just needed the same thing that now that I'm a middle-class person, that my middle-class kids needed. They needed to have people to be connected to that would say, hey, you're interested in being an attorney? Why don't you come down to my office? Spend the day with me. Look at it, right? Which is what the whole theory behind, take your daughter to work day is, this relational idea, right? That everything is not a programmatic fix. By the way, I've got some relationships for you. If you guys are very excited about East Lake State, we just did an event with the East Lake Clinic, which is in the Hennepin County building, and we did it at the ALC, the Adult Learning Center, which is on Lake Street. And we hired all the young people from the Adult Learning Center, many of whom are of color, many who come from really deep poverty circumstances. And those young people said that they had never experienced anything like that before, being welcome, not being treated as a program. So you guys, when you go and volunteer on East Lake Street, look in at ALC, invite some of those young people to come and clean up the streets with you. It's their neighborhood. They want to be with you, and it would give you new relationships. Relational challenges require relational solutions. The other thing about this is I work in this field and I'm constantly getting called from people. We want to meet more people of color. And very often it's, we want to build more diversity. But it's very rarely, okay, what can we do together reciprocally? Or not seen us as something that you're going to do as a charity. I'm really talented at what I do. I don't want somebody to think of helping me as a charity. I want them to think of it as a darn good business decision. And I found that most young people who grow up in poverty or come from limited circumstances are the same. That it's actually those of us who kind of we get filled in our hearts from helping somebody, but sometimes we don't realize the best thing we can do in a community is partner with them in a way and say, okay, I think I have the solution, but what is your solution? And sometimes people who live within our communities have better solutions than we who live outside the communities, or those of us who are at the top of the community, because we're no longer there. We're no longer in the moment. So there's a high cost to this. And one of them is that we're constantly being invited into rooms. I'm invited into rooms continually until I get pushback on an idea, and then I get summarily kicked out of the room. I'm just telling you that right now. So I get kind of like, well, you're saying things that make me feel uncomfortable, Marnita, and I liked it when you were making me feel comfortable. Just know that there's, do you agree with everything that your family says? How many of you agree with everything your family says? What do you have that allows your family and you to get along? Say. Right. Trust. Right? So what I'm saying is sometimes what we need to weather the disconnect and the distrust is time, right? And so often whenever we're doing something, we have to make new friendship. It has to be immediately productive and it has to show up, right? Well, are you required to do that with your friends? Do you have to know that somebody was your best friend on the very first day? They have to agree to be on your committee and sign up I'm just saying that whenever we put money in something, we want all these proof of investment and all these things. And when you're trying to create a perpetual motion machine of this, a socially contagious way to do this, by the way, social contagion is the way you get this stuff done. This is the way we do it, right? We reach out to kids at Kenwood Elementary, which is right up the road, right Lake of the House. We realized that a lot of the kids of color didn't have anybody to see their stars on the walls. And so instead of having another PTA meeting, being angry about parents who were in poverty, who didn't have great transportation, we decided to do something different. We asked every parent who could come to make sure that they agreed to drive a kid who would ordinarily not be there and to acknowledge their stars on the wall. It's a different solution to the problem, right? Instead of beating up parents who are working 3 minimum wage jobs that we've told them they have to have their children, while we're telling them that they shouldn't be in a room. Understand that we do these things sometimes and don't realize how hard we're making it. I remember as a single parent, my ex-husband cleaned out my bank accounts and abandoned my 5-year-old and I when he was little. And I wanted to be, I never envisioned myself. I'd gotten married at 32. I mean, this was like, I was an adult mom, and I was so worried what people would think of me. I think you need to know that there are so many stereotypes out there about us, about what we like, what we don't like, what we do. I'm going to remind you all that my people stood in the doors of schoolhouses to get to go to school. If anybody ever tells you a Black person doesn't like education, don't believe them. We stood in schoolhouse doors and got bombed to go to school. When I went to school in kindergarten and first grade, although all of my brothers and sisters are white, and all 5 of my brothers were class valedictorian or salutatorian, you'd think my family had a little bit about education going on. And I still wasn't accepted. I'm telling you this because I think sometimes people think that these are like, I don't know, wives' tales or urban myths that this is happening to us. And so there's a high cost of perpetual performance and only wanting relationships to prove that you've done something as opposed to having authentic relationships. So this is always a fun one. So how many, but I want you to stand up and stay standing if you can. How many of you have somebody in your own family who's across race, class, culture, or other means of self-identity? Please stand up. If you already have somebody in your family who's across ethnicity, race, class, culture, or other means of self-identity. Yep, or doesn't, whatever you consider your family. How many of you have somebody in your family who's disabled or autistic, or another sort of, stand up, please. If you have somebody in your family who's LGBTQ plus, please stand up. Even on that list, I want you to look around the room. Are you in the majority or the minority? There is no them. There's only us. My only request of you is the same request I have of my white family, which is they do not accept me by making me an exception. That when they see me as being exceptional and brilliant, they view that as a lens that expands their understanding of what it means to be from my cultural group, as opposed to saying that I'm different than my cultural group. And that is a common thing. We call it accepting by accepting. So you can sit down. I just want you to remember that. They are us. When you sit around a table, you're not talking about those people over there. You're talking about your families. You're talking about how your relative feels about getting in a building where they may be in a wheelchair, how your person feels being the only person of that identity to walk into a room and having to listen. Well, we just want to tell you, what we feel about this, and realizing, like, what does that feel like to me as the only person in my body in that room? I'm just saying there is no them, there's only us. And instead of thinking of us as exceptions, all of us are connected in this room. And we're connected across difference, and we have people across difference in our families. And if we don't, we have somebody that we can easily go to. But it's not always an extractive experience. Just be aware of that. So there's no them, there's only us. So I love this story, and this will appeal to you, I think, as Rotarians. So I went to a church sale. My brother-in-law is who I call my dad. He is my sister who's 80 years older than, who's 80 years old, who's 20 years older than me. He is my sister's husband, and he's an Episcopal priest. And when I was a little girl, when I was 13 and I was falling through the cracks, he said, we're going to get in the car and we're going to go get your little sister, and she's falling through the cracks and I'm worried. And he saved my life. And so I was at his church, Trinity Episcopal in Portland, Oregon, and they were having a little fair, a little craft fair, as you can see by the little fairies. And this woman, First Rosie in Beaverton, Oregon, was selling these little fairies, except for she only had blonde-haired ones and brown-haired ones, and they were all white. And I said to her, excuse me, do you have any brown fairies? Your fairies are fabulous, and I love fairies. I love fairies. I love sparkles. I love twinkles. I love anything that sparkles. And she said, Well, no, and I've never actually been asked before, but I have brown felt, and I'm going to go back to my, Airbnb tonight, and I will make you 3. I have enough to make and enough time to make you 3, and I will bring them back to the fair tomorrow to see if you like them. Well, I've personally now ordered more than 100 of them, and I and Lucille are very good friends at Forest Whimsy. But this is the coolest thing about this story. She'd never made a brown fairy before. She now sells double brown fairies that she does white fairies. It turns out in Portland, Oregon, there's a whole lot of white grandmas with brown grandchildren who go to church fairs. And they've been looking for something for their grandchildren and never had seen their grandchildren's faces. So here was a businesswoman who you might think would have thought, oh no, I'm not going to do that, who expanded her market. It wasn't a negative thing. She didn't take it as a negative thing. She took it as a positive thing. And she leaned into it. And not only have we become very good friends over this process, she now makes me mermaids too. Not just fairies. And now she makes me little baby pod fairies that are like, she does all sorts of she does all sorts of creative things. When she first started doing them, she only did like one color. Now you could tell she's going out. Now she makes indigenous fairies and Latin fairy. Like she's making like little Colombian fairies, little Peruvian fairies. Like she's now going around the globe, and it's really fun to see how she's gotten inspired by this. So it doesn't have to be a trauma to actually adopt this kind of practice in your life. We like to say we boldly move from theory to everyday practice. And what we mean by this, that authentic welcome is a practice. It is something you do. It's how you show up. You slow down. You don't think of somebody as being a part of a group, and you practice this authentic welcome. So practice-based inclusion. Well, what does this look like? Well, often it's slowing down, and let's see if I have this one. First thing we always ask is to pay attention to what you're paying attention to. So sometimes what we're paying attention to, we had a situation recently where we had some doctors in the room and we were on a digital call. And when we do this, it's a technology, right? And so people are always looking like, well, I've been at other things. I've been at this World Cafe, and what is your technology and how does it work differently? And so they like to watch, did you ask the right questions? What's happening? And they're always checking the engagement. And so we had this doctor, and we had an all Spanish speaking room online. And this woman doctor was on the back channel with us saying, they're not engaged. And we were talking to the people who were doing the transcription and the translation in the room. One of them was saying, listen, I want this doctor to understand that 3 of the people in the room had don't even have phones with cameras. They have old style flip phones. And one of them was so interested in the conversation that they ran down the block when their phone ran out of time and added more minutes. Took them 10 minutes to run down the block, come back to stay in this conversation. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. This doctor should have been paying attention to what would it mean to somebody who had to do telehealth that had to run down the block to get more time to have their doctor's appointment. Pay attention to what you're paying attention to. Sometimes when we look at a situation, what we're looking at is what we expect of it, not what it is. We're constantly asking people, pay attention to what you're paying attention to. What aren't you paying attention to? And then the last recommendation we have is, how many of you know what the golden rule is? How many of you know what the platinum rule is? What is it? Exactly. And I was, I think you heard that I was a fellow. How am I doing? I'm out of time. I'm out of time. I didn't realize I was that late. I'm so sorry. Somebody should have given me a 10. That's why Lauren's normally here to give me my 10. Like, you have 10 minutes left so people can ask you questions. I'll stand out there if anybody has questions for me. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to run late. I'm kind of off kilter this morning, but thank you for your patience. Treat others the way they want to be treated. That was the final slide anyway.
Thank you so much. And we're involved with a Way to Grow, which helps children, kids at risk.
And we know. Yep.
Okay, well, what we're going to ask you to do as a community leader is sign a book that will be given to a third grader.
Oh, absolutely.
A third grader. And then for you, we have connections in Haiti, and we've got a bookmark for you that was handmade. So I've got a pen.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I will say, I didn't mean to run long. I normally am very good on time.
What a delightful presentation, Marnita. Thank you so much. And next week coming up, first of all, when you see Scott and Ross, ask them what they learned at the Rotary Convention in Houston, where they are right now. Our speaker will be Deb Sauls from Social Venture Partners, who is involved in an innovative grant-making program for nonprofit organizations. And I want to thank the many people who helped make this meeting possible today. Jeff Meacham online with the reflection, Mark Leibovitz with his introduction, our rooter, our greeter, Andrew, our Zoom masters, Brock, it's always fantastic job, and Greg and Anna for the courage to start learning this job. Hooray. And also thank you to Mary Pat and Dick. It takes a village to run one of these meetings, I tell you. And with that, have a great Rotary week.